Very good evening to all of you all. I hope you all could hear me out loud. Yeah. So let me share my screen. Just a second, please. All right. I hope my screen is visible to you all.
It is.
Yeah. Amazing. Right. So very good evening to all of you all. Right. So very nice having all of you all here today as well. I think it's quite a big number. I think we're expecting a few more. So yes, so let's get on with it. Right. So first and foremost, before we start off, just give me a second, please. Let me just share this. All right. Shalini, is my line clear? Is my screen visible too? Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Right. So we'll start off with a quote, right? So as per usual, right? So the closest perfection a person will ever come is when he fills a job application. I think this is quite fair in all sense, because we try so hard, right, to feel perfect in what we do, right, when we especially prepare a CV, right? And I think we sometimes go way above the line, right, and we go way too much above what's needed as well, and sometimes way below it, right? So there are two aspects to it. So I think we can hopefully cover some ground. We can look how things are to be done in the upcoming slides, and we can take it from there, right? So right. So just a small introduction about myself, right? So basically, I have been doing talent acquisition for the past 5+ years here at 99X, right? So that's a little bit about my history. And currently I head the talent acquisition function for 99X Sri Lanka as well as global, right? So it's an entire big operation that we overlook at the moment, and we are going strong. So apart from that, I have previously been part of few companies which had, multinational presence in different parts of the world. And then when it comes to my interests and hobbies, obviously, I like to read a lot of articles pertaining to what I do as a job. I think that keeps me more or less in sync and in line to ensure that I remain present and relevant, right, in what I do. And then I'm as in very big fan of cycling, right? So that's something which I started quite recently, and do quite a lot of it during the weekends. And then singing music, and then I also help a lot of small businesses grow, right? So we have a lot of conversations day to day, and then we understand about how we can grow, what possibilities we can look at, and how well we can expand those businesses into businesses which will bring about great returns, right? So a little bit about 99X altogether, everyone. So 99X has been in operation in Sri Lanka for nearly 2 decades. It's a long time of existence, and I'm so happy to say that we are going strong, even after the pandemic and everything that the country has been through and is going through at the moment, right? So now 99X is not known as a Sri Lankan company anymore. And basically, it's known as a Norwegian company, right? And the Sri Lankan office happens to be the largest ODC that we have at present at the moment, right? So we have 450 employees altogether in our company, right? And we are moving very fast towards 500. So sooner or later, we'll be 500,000, right? Not 500,000, 500,000 rather, right? And we should be seeing some very new faces in the upcoming times. And then we were also the first company to gain the legend status, right? So great place to work many times in a row. And now here we are, we got the legend status, and that's something which we really adore as a company, right? And the best thing about 99X is that last year we were all about Sri Lankan operation, and the years before that, right? We always wanted to pursue, the Sri Lankan market, find who's there in the Sri Lankan market, and cater to all the openings. And now it's completely different. Now we are all about going global, right? So we are working on acquisitions about, going headfast and purchasing companies, or etc., as you will call it, or even partnerships. And then we are also looking at remote workers altogether. So that's how much we are doing as a company, right? So moving on, right? What's special about talent acquisition at 99X is that for us, we always compete with our own self, right? That's something which we really keep to, and something we are very proud of. We don't look at other partnering or neighboring companies and be like, they are doing this much, we need to compete with that. That's not our goal, right? So what we want to do is basically compete with ourselves and go in the right direction, right? And also we recruit people for the right reasons. We give them right projects, and we ensure that we give them fulfilling careers altogether, right? And then, we hire based on mathematical models. We don't hire for the sake of it. We see upcoming openings. We use mathematical models to predict all that, and then we go ahead with hires, right? And then salary is also, above industry norms, and we are doing very well. We are pegged to the US dollar at the current moment, and that's something which we are very proud of, right? And the best part, I think most of the companies in Sri Lanka and worldwide, they have been suffering with the ongoing crisis in the country and everything that's going on. But for us as a company, right, we have had the best year thus far. So up until today, we have done north of 140 hires, right? So that has been the best year. So 2020, you see, we have done 65, then 2021, 105, and now here, north of 140, right? And then I'm very certain that the majority of the crowd here, right, belong to, the academics or, from the universities or undergraduates or graduates who are here today, right? And I also want to show you all some relevant numbers so that it makes sense as to why you're participating in this today, right? So from all universities across Sri Lanka, we hired 68 last year, and this year we have had 71 thus far, and we are going to hire more. So we'll talk about, how you could increase your chances about getting into 99X, as well as, how well you could explore other options in other companies and then see your possibility of getting into one of it, right? So we'll step forward from there, right? So before we start or talk about contents of the CV, right, I want to give you all an overall picture of what a CV is and basically who are the parties who look at the CV, right? So altogether, as you might understand, there are only two stakeholders when it comes to a CV, right? One is definitely yourself, right, the candidate, and definitely it's going to be us, the people who are reviewing it altogether, right? And I'll tell you about the importance of what you have in control so that we can all come into a general understanding about what this whole concept is as a CV, because most of the time companies just speak of the content and they won't give you the bigger picture that is very much needed for you to understand the content here, right? So we'll talk about the candidate first, or in other terms, you, right? So what you could decide on or what you have control over when it comes to your CV are two aspects. One is content and behavior, right? So content, like any other time you key in something to your CV, that's content, right? So that's where you find more and more things to include in your CV, right? And it's also about how you format your CV. And it's also about how you present yourself in a CV. So I think it's very upfront when you say content. So everything that you put in CV is under your control. And that's something which you directly have, a span of control, right? The behavior is something which is very unique, right? And something I would like to really take some time and make you understand. It's about how well you get the knowledge that you have already learned, right? And you find an instance to apply that to a real world situation, right? So I'll give you all one fine example. This is where, I was speaking to my chief, people officer, right? And he happened to give me a wonderful example. It's where, back in the day when he was, going to college, right? What do you call a computer lab was set up. So basically the space was given, the computer devices or the computer units were just given, and that's it, right? And then what they had to do was set it up and get it up and going, right? So all the top performers in the batch didn't want to really do that, but the people who were, usually in the second level or the general degree level got together, did this, right? And then they put this in their CV, right? And when, it came to the time where they had to liaise with the industry and, get into industry jobs altogether, they were the first ones to get the job. That's because they used the knowledge that everyone was taught and they put that into a worthwhile project altogether. So that's something which they had control over. And that really showed how much they cared and valued to put in their knowledge to practical aspects, right? So that's what we mean by behavior in terms of this slide, right? So the content and behavior, as I explained, are things which are directly under your control, something which you could control, and then you can make the most of it, right? Now, when it comes to organizations like us, right, we look at several things, or three things, quite simply, right? One, we look at your academic excellence, right? So here we see what your GPA is, obviously. But then again, something I really want to highlight is that your GPA doesn't tell the whole story, and we at 99X, for us, GPA is not everything. We look at everything you have done. So basically, academics, GPA is there, what projects you have been in, and then, what groups, societies, clubs, and etc. you're part of. I think that tells us the bigger story. That's something which we really appreciate. And that's what we mean as academic excellence altogether, right? And then emotional intelligence is where we foresee from your CV where you have provided leadership in projects, what your role was, right? And then we see what clubs and societies you're part of and what those clubs did. This helps us understand your persona, right? So that's a technical word. This helps us understand, how well you're geared towards, making the best out of getting this opportunity here in this company, right? So that's what we mean by emotional intelligence of a person altogether. And lastly, applied knowledge. This is once again, somewhat of a correlation is there to what we explained as behavior. This is exactly where we speak about, how well you took that knowledge, which you learned, and then you put that into a practical aspect so that you can help the greater society altogether in the world or in Sri Lanka altogether, right? So that's a big picture. Those are the stakeholders, and that's where we are going to start the conversation from, right? So let me start out with some facts as well. As you see, on average, 250 resumes are submitted for each job posting, and 4 to 6 candidates will get an interview, right? So this is not to dishearten you per se, but this is the true picture that I want to start with, right? So we'll move on, right? So why is CV writing so important, right? We as recruiters, right, and even my team right now, right, we spend less than 30 seconds looking at a CV. We quickly open it and then we glance through because we get many CVs. So being on point and ensuring that you really present yourself in the most brief, summarized, comprehensive manner is everything to us, right? So because of that, we spend less time. So keep this in mind. And then now jobs are not local anymore, it's global. So we as a company to hire globally and internationally. So you're not now competing with a small niche market, it's with a massive market where you need to really put your best foot forward, right? And then just for numerics, right, you see, when it comes to volumes, right, so far we have got 14,000 CVs, and now you pretty much understand why we spend less than 30 seconds browsing through a CV altogether, right? So that's just some numbers for you. So how to get more content into your CV? So this is something which most of the candidates when I interview ask me, right? So this is where you have to gain more practical and relevant experience. So if you get an opportunity in your university to do something, you can do something. If you're employed right now, if you have an opportunity to do more for your company, go ahead to it, right? All experience is good experience, right? So that's what I want to tell. So get anything you want, that will take you a long way. Undergraduates, of course, be part of, club, society, etc. Because I think now we are in a time and space where graduates think or undergraduates think that studies is everything, which is not the case, right? So I want to really emphasize on that, right? And then obviously do more courses, do more qualifications so that it will help you out in the future and then, take you forward. Yeah. Right. And now we come to the interesting bit, right? So this is where I think this is what everyone wanted to see rather, right? So it's about how you structure your CV, right? So this is more or less like a guideline. If you want, feel free to even take a photo of this, I'm okay, right? So this is exactly what we would like to see as a structure in your CV, right? So your full name, I'll tell you why, full is differentiated from the rest. So that we look at your photo, contact details, summary, not objective, once again, summary, right? Work experience, academics, professional qualifications, academic projects and other involvements, extracurriculars, and last but not least, the referees, right? So yes. All right, so we have some very interesting pictures here as well, right? And some interesting content, right? So the thing is full name, right? I think in Sri Lanka, it's very common to find individuals with lengthy names. So once I came across this candidate who had 14 names altogether, it's massive, right? And the truth is, right, if you were to include your full name, right, it would be very hard to manage space, especially in a context like in Sri Lanka, right? So it's just not you, it's me too, right? So the thing is, what we would highly recommend is that you probably use just 3 names, right? So one is your calling name, one you call as your middle name, and one is definitely your surname, not your family name, surname, right? So I think that's one recommendation as the first point, where you cross out everything. Now, as you see in this example, right, if you're Don Fernando, etc., slash out everything. That's not needed at the very top of your CV, right? If your name is Nisanka, go ahead with Nisanka Anuradha Pereira. bold or underline your calling name so that recruiters as us, right, know which name to call you when we phone you, right? Because if not, we are going to have a very, very hard time figuring out whether to call you Nisanka, Fernando, Kumarage, or whatever it is, right? It's not easy, right? And it's very hard to get, it's very easy to get offended as well if you call you the wrong name. I completely get your point, right? So make life easier for every one of us in all organizations. Please highlight or bold the name that you want us to address you when we call you, right? And then we come to the photo, right? Now, when it comes to the photo, of course, right, people have different opinions about it, right? Perceptions, as I would call it, right? And once again, in a time and age where, Instagram or Facebook or, TikTok now, the new trend, Snapchat, right? Where everything is so famous and insanely popular, we always resort to using one of those pictures when we're on the fly. Now, for example, let's say if your friend tells you to send your CV immediately, what we usually do is we quickly draft something, put something in a Word document, get something out of Snapchat or TikTok and put it here, and then we call it a day, which should not be the case, right? Because the thing is, what you have to understand is that once again, you need to present yourself professionally, right? So that's incredibly important, right? So use a formal, decent, and acceptable picture. I know acceptable, once again, is subjective, right? But I'll leave that up to discussion. But, please ensure that you wear something which is formal and accepted in a corporate setting so that you can make the best out of it, right? So as you see, picture 1, 2, 3, and 4 are definitely not the types of pictures we want to see, right? It's okay, you post this on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, but definitely not on your CV, right? So the last two pictures you see of this lady here and the gentleman over here are the types of pictures we would appreciate to see in your CV. All right. Right. Moving ahead, we have the contact details, right? Once again, right, when we speak to a lot of undergraduates, right, we come across this quite so often, where you have included either your mom's number or your dad's number or someone else's number. Sometimes the grandparents, sometimes it's someone else. Sometimes we come across instances where, you have added the number of your significant other, right? I know that might be some sort of, let's say, comfort for you, knowing that sometimes you won't be able to answer your phone and you can transfer the line to someone else. But then again, kindly understand that we are trying to talk to you, right? We want to really talk to you because we have seen your CV, you have impressed us. That's why we are calling you, right? So include your own number, but not anyone else's. And then once again, include just 2 phone numbers. Sometimes, people include 4, 5, 6 numbers. Sometimes you have one on Hutch, Dialog, Mobitel, Airtel, etc. You have number from every network in Sri Lanka, right? Which should not be the case altogether, right? So that's something which we could avoid, right? So that, once again, it makes life easier for us, right? And then now more and more individuals, I'm very sure most of them who are here now, right now in this discussion or in this event, are also looking at the possibility of applying overseas due to the current economic conditions in Sri Lanka, which is quite fair in different persons' perceptions and thinking patterns, right? If that is the case, if you're applying outside of Sri Lanka, always use the country code +94 so that you demarcate that you're from a different country altogether. And this is the country code they need to dial first before your number so that you could reach you, right? And the other thing is now, our world is becoming digital. And then the thing is, it's such a digital world that nothing is secretive anymore and everything could be shared on the fly, right? This is how, gossip, news on Facebook, etc., cover entire Sri Lanka in a matter of few minutes because, how fast the message is transmittable from one device to another. And with all this comes concerns about privacy, right? Which is insanely important when you are trying to lead your life, right? So the thing is, we would highly recommend, I think in the past, it was different where, employers wanted you to mention your house number, which lane you live, where you live in Sri Lanka, and etc. But I think given the time and space we are in right now, I don't think it's essential. Just indicating the area and the country would do. For example, if you're, let's say, let's take an example. If you're from Moratuwa, just say Moratuwa, Sri Lanka, so that we know you're from Moratuwa. You are to travel from Moratuwa to Colombo in case you were to get the job, right? So that's why it's important to do that. And then last of the contact details is definitely your email address, right? Now, the thing is, when it comes to email addresses, right, I think I'm guilty of this as well. When we were small, or when we were young, rather, we used to come up with weird, types of email addresses, whatever comes to your mind, you just key it in, you create the email address and you call it a day. You're so happy you share it with your friends, right? But the thing is, right, I don't think it's always acceptable to use that when you come to a corporate setting. If you have an email address like that, that's okay. Leave it aside, create a new one, which is totally acceptable, and go ahead with it, right? Now, I have shown you all two examples, Father's Angel, and then you know what it is, right? It's on the screen. But legend, I promise you, the example number one here, which you see as Father's Angel 2002, was actually an email address that was there, right? So keep in mind that these are things which are very sensitive as well. So try to ensure that you create a professional image of yourself when you present yourself, right? That's that about contact details. Then we come on to summary, right? Now, again, it's a very normal thing where you find individuals saying that they're going to contribute their skills to the purpose, the organizational vision, mission, etc. Right? They go ranting on about it. But the honest truth is, right, you as a candidate, right, or every one of us, in case we are to apply outside, right, we really don't know what the company's mission or vision statement is even, right? We just put it there because we found it off the internet. You copy it, paste it, voila, you're done. Good. We have an objective in our CV. But completely discard it. Take it out. If you have it, take it out, right? No company wants to see a copy-pasted sentence because we generally don't read this if we see it, right? Instead, try to replace it with something like a summary of your CV. So just to say how old you are, what degree program you're doing, where you did it, what experience you have, in what tech stack, if you're, if you happen to be a technical individual in this forum today, and then what sort of role you're looking at, right? So as you see here, now when it comes to the summary, and then what you see here in purple, right? In 3 sentences, you give an entire overview about you, right? So this is what you want. So after contact details at the very top, please ensure that you include a summary and not an objective, right? So that's that. Amazing. Work experience, right? That's the next important topic as well, subtopic rather, right? Now, once again, let's say you do an internship during, your studies, or you work somewhere, now you're looking for another job. I know it might seem, let's say, boss, right, to include all the work of that project so that you could take all the credibility for it, look good in your CV and etc. But that might set you up for disaster, right? That's because in case you come across an interviewer who will go through every nitty-gritty of your CV, it's going to be very, very hard for you to justify all of it if you lied in your CV, right? So the thing is, always include only the work you did and not something anyone else did. If you didn't do it, you didn't do it. If you did, you did it, right? So ensure that you do that. Then likewise, mention any sort of added responsibility you did, right? Or a placement that you had in the team. So for example, if you were the lead, mention that you were lead. If you were a software engineer, ensure that you tell that you're a software engineer so that we understand. Also the tools and technology, especially I think this is very relevant if you're coming from a technological background. Where if you're a .NET engineer, we want to see the entirety of it, what you exactly did, so that we understand how suited you are for the opening we have, right? That's something which we want to see. Duration of the stint, right? Now, quite recently, I got a candidate asking me over LinkedIn whether it's okay to include 7 months of experience or internship experience she had, which I said, I'm perfectly okay to, right? You better be truthful rather than lie, right? So any sort of stint you have done, please include it so that we know your background. And it might seem very rude and not nice if you happen to join a company and after which we find out that you work somewhere else, right? So at the very start itself, you're starting off with a bad impression outcome, right? So that's that. And then if you've worked in multiple places, always keep your most recent experience right at the top, right? And then you can follow down through so that, we also understand there's a logical, let's say, a hierarchy to how you have, placed all that information, right? Then when it comes to your degree, once again, right, academic qualifications, right, and professional qualifications both, right? Mention what sort of degree you did, where you did it, the GPA. I know sometimes, all of us are not overachievers, right? Sometimes we might not score 4 out of 4. We might not score 3.5, right? It's okay, right? Tell your GPA and when you completed it, right? Because the thing is, I'll give you reasoning why as well, because most of the companies, right, I've been to some companies don't, but most of the companies who genuinely care about all employees in a company usually go through their record and see what other people or who other people are there from the same batch as yours in the company, so that we maintain sort of a benchmark in terms of salaries that we provide. So for example, let's say if you were part of class 2008, right, and if we have a engineer or someone in the company who's probably getting, I don't know, let's say a random number like 300,000, right, and let's say the employee is happy, he's from the same batch as you, he has been here for very long, he's getting 300,000. And let's say someone comes along from the same batch, doesn't disclose that to us, and we offer him, let's say 500,000. Not that we have done it, it's just purely an example, but 500,000. Then the person inside the organization who's from the same batch is going to feel very, very demotivated, right? So if an organization really cares about you, they look into all this information. Having all this information readily available makes life easier for us, right? So this is why we want all that included, right? Then when it comes to academic projects and other involvements, right, mention all the things that you did as extra work, right? I think that's where you really shine, where you stand out, right? For example, if you have done a session on employer branding where you created, like in the example, awareness on agile for universities, right? Or something as such. So break it down into 3 parts, mention it as areas so that we identify as a snapshot what you have done, initiative, more or less, the actual work you did towards attaining something, and the impact, what came out of it, what was the greater good, right? So try to include all that. I think that will take you very far indeed, right? Right. So we are skimming very fast as well, right? Time is also flying, right? So the thing is, CV writing, the do's, right? Keep your CV short and simple, right? Don't try to overcrowd it with too many words where you find like it's like an essay or a book written by, I don't know, some author from the late hundreds, right? Try to keep it precise, small, very to the point, right? That's something which you want to see. Maximum 3 pages, best practice 2 pages, right? Should do that. Then also when it comes to formatting, be clear, neat, and precise once again, right? Don't use different types of fonts everywhere, right? Please don't do that. Don't use any funky formats or fonts once again. And then when it comes to font colors also, be very mindful about what you're using. If you're going to use something like red in a black background, it's going to kill the eyes of the person who's going to look at your CV, right? So please don't do that, right? Please be mindful. Make life easier for everyone. Use something which is simple and nice. Once again, follow a logical sequence. So this is mainly the structure that we discussed before, right? So please follow the structure which we spoke of, and I think you'll be good to go, right? Once again, suit the CV to the requirement, right? Ensure if you're applying for a software engineer job, include in the summary that you're going to apply for a software engineer job, right? Don't apply for an ATL or associate tech lead position with software engineer included in the summary. Don't do that, right? Please ensure that you be mindful and show that you care about what you're applying for, right? Design should represent who you are. So try to personalize it. I think we can get a format as well, but feel free to do that within a structure and a framework so that you don't go overboard with it, right? Make it unique and memorable. So many times, right? My team knows this very well, right? I come up to this meeting room and then we discuss about openings we have. And then we come across some critical opening. And then I suddenly remember someone and I tell them, look here, there's this guy who's wearing a black tie, who has a picture like this, etc. This is the color of the CV, etc. We need to find the CV. Because sometimes you won't remember the name, sometimes you remember the CV, right? So make your CV stand out, in a good way so that, you have better chances of getting recruited. Vocabulary and grammar, right? I know all of us, English not being the first language, there's always a lot of room for mistake, right? So the thing is, I know all of us in our country are striving hard to learn the language pretty well, right? And whilst we do all that, make it a point to run through all your spelling using, all the Microsoft tools you have, the spell checker, right? So that, at least up to a certain extent, you correct mistakes rather than just pushing content across, right? And then towards the last few points, apply early. Don't wait till the last second. If acceptance is ending tomorrow, don't wait until the last minute and then apply and then, call it a day. Please don't do that. Support with the LinkedIn profile, which will come to very shortly, and make other social profiles private. Please do that. All right. Sometimes, you have public Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, etc. If you're very serious about applying to a job and you do understand that you don't have the best content in all your other social profiles, you know, uh, please ensure that you make it private, right? Because, perceptions of people are different. Some people don't care. Some people take things very personally. Don't let other things fault or, hinder your chance of getting somewhere. And lastly, have two good referees, people who will genuinely support you, who will take you forward, who will give good responses if they were to get contacted regarding this, right? Right. And then the don'ts, right? Apply for all vacancies, right? Sometimes we come across candidates like this quite so often, where they apply for all the vacancies we have, regardless, right? Be it for an opening that we have where requires 1 year of experience or 10 years or 20 years, it doesn't matter to them. They just apply for it all, right? So I don't think that's something which you should do, where you go with a strategy where you say, I'll throw all the stones I have. If it knocks on something, I'm good. Please don't do that, right? So I think that's something we need to work on. Switch off the phone or go missing in action. Right. Sometimes you apply. We try to call you so many times. Your phone is dead. You have probably taken off the number. You have discarded the SIM already. And then the SIM is sometimes already with another person who's not you. Right. So don't do that. Romantic caller tunes, right? I think sometimes we call and then sometimes we hear Titanic, sometimes we hear something from Jayashree, and then sometimes we hear something from Amradeva or something. It's okay, right? I do understand it's your personality. But once again, if it's something outrageous, if you think it's not suitable, right? Let's work on it and we'll probably change it or take it off altogether, right? And then the file name, right? Please name it as, CV dash your name. I think that's the best way forward. So for example, if I was to CV dash Aisha Bhavnat, right? Straightforward, simple. As a practice, I think a lot of undergraduates, they have 1,000 versions of it. And sometimes it says updated, V1, V2, V5, final copy, certified, right? So we don't want to see all that, right? So just ensure that you find your final copy which you're happy with. And then you rename it saying CV dash your name. We are good to go, right? And then we come across certain candidates where we call them and they too are surprised to hear that they are being phoned, right? They also don't know about the company, right? Don't be that type of candidate where you apply to everything where you don't even know the name of the company, right? So we call them and then sometimes they're like, oh, I'm not so sure if I applied for it. Or they are so surprised. They're like, oh, wow, I applied for this. They ask us whether they applied for it. And I don't think that should be the case, right? That's that. And when it comes to formats, right? Sometimes we see this in a lot of batches when it comes to universities, where a set of group of friends all have the same CV, right? Just the name is different. Content is the same, format is the same, color is the same. I think I'm just guessing there's probably one guy who takes money and does all this for everyone. It's the same CV across the board, right? So once again, we'll try to move from it. And then don't send the document to us as a Word file. Make it a PDF, right? So that changes or edits won't happen along the process of applying, right? And then this is very interesting. Try to visualize your ability of a tool skill on a Likert scale or something else. Sometimes I've come across candidates which they say, okay, my English knowledge is 8 out of 10. My knowledge on Java is 9 out of 10. Excel is 5 out of 5, right? And I think that's not relevant, right? Because it's so subjective, right? Because the thing is, if you think you know it all, you're already gauging yourself from the things you know, right? So obviously it's going to be a 4 out of 5, right? So I think the thing is, if you were to go and explain your knowledge to someone probably like who knows it all when it comes to Excel, they might tell you the real picture. But don't ever rate your own self saying I'm a 2 out of 5, 10 out of 5, or whatever it is. Don't do that. Just list down what you know as technologies or skills, but don't rate your own self, right? Then use flashy colors as the color palette, right? I think this comes across quite so often as well. Sometimes it's a full blown pink color, right? In your CV, where you open it and suddenly your monitor wants to die, right? Because it's so flashy that it's so hard on your eyes, right? You really don't want to do it, right? Please don't do that, right? So please use some neutral colors which are eye friendly, right? So that you have better chances once again, right? And then lastly, these are not related to CV writing per se, but then again, this is something which I want to emphasize because I think the masses should know. Please don't apply for jobs if you're not sure of switching, right? So often we come about candidates where they be with us the entire process, they don't jot a word. And once we give the offer, they come back to us and tell us, look here, I was not sure anyway, I just wanted to try, right? Please don't do that because you're wasting a lot of time of the company that you're applying to. And likewise, you're probably ruining the opportunity for someone else altogether, right? Sometimes there might be a candidate who's dying to get this job, but you're just trying it out. Life is not fair, I get it. But then again, that's not something we should do as people. So please don't, apply for jobs if you're not sure of it, right? Then set expected salary 2 times of your current salary. I think these are something which we see as a very common practice. And most of the companies, right? I think the big established companies where there are processors and everything as such, not the startups, right? They might not fancy it. If you're getting 100, don't ask for 200. Be generous, be open. Give them reason why they need to pay you more, right? But don't be very unrealistic in terms of numbers and what you want to do, right? So that's something. All right, we covered that as well. And this is a format that I wanted to show you all. This follows everything that we discussed, right? Color palette is, once again, subject to discussion, but you all can change this accordingly and do what you think is right? But these mainly everything we discussed. So there are no, let's say Likert scales or anything, rating your own self. Everything is straightforward. You start with the name bolded, title is there, there's a small introduction, then the experience is there as a proper flow, referees are there, expertise, education is there, contact details and all are there. And then there's a photo as well, which is very professional and which looks clear, right? So please try to follow something as such. Right, so we are now onto LinkedIn, right? So let me just load that in the time being. Right. Okay. Right. Shalini, is my screen visible? Is it all good?
Yes, Ashan, all good.
All right. So, yes. So I think we are right on track as well. Right. So we come to LinkedIn, right? I think LinkedIn is such a crucial tool or profile that you need to have, because this is where we as large companies always find the best talent, right? More so than ever, we now use LinkedIn, right? And we even use very advanced tools like LinkedIn Recruiter, where we pay millions of Sri Lankan rupees to get one single license so that we can directly reach out to candidates that we really want to speak to, right? So the importance is that you portray yourself in the best way possible, in the most professional way possible, so that it ends up with you getting more chances of getting selected to a company, right? So we'll start off with what you see, right? So the banner, right? The banner and the profile picture, once again, profile picture, make it something which is acceptable, professional, and decent. And then your banner to make it something which is relatable. Sometimes I see right? College students, once again, right? Or even individuals who have experience in the industry, right? Put a group picture with like 10 other individuals, right? So we also don't know who you are. Sometimes we see 10 people. It's like, say, it's like an assumption where we could say, we hire one person, we get the rest as well, which is not a great notion. But then again, please ensure, right, that you put something which is acceptable and not something where you're hugging all your friends or where it's a group selfie altogether, right? Please don't do that, right? And then we come about your name once again. Just the calling name and the surname would do. Please don't include all the rest of the names, right? And then we come about, right, something which is very important. That's about your URL when it comes to your candidate profile, right? So when you open up a LinkedIn profile, automatically, usually, right, there is a link that is generated for your own account, right? As a first step, after you set up your cover picture, your profile picture, and your name, right, go to this link that you see on your right hand side called Edit Public Profile and URL, right? Please go to that. And here you see a pencil icon, right? I hope, Shelly, I hope it's visible to all of you, all right?
Yes,
It's all good?
Ashan. That's right.
All
Yes.
right. So the thing is, you see a pencil icon here where you can click on it, edit it, and put something which is very relevant to your profile, right? Sometimes, for the most part, when it's auto-generated, it comes in numerics and it comes in letters and etc., where it says AQB 45, etc. That's not something you ought to include in your CV, right? So then include something which is personal, which is good, so that it's a linkedin.com/IN because we happen to be in that region of the world. And then it says, your name with the surname. So what I always advise people to do is use their first name and the first letter of their last name, right? So for me, it's Aishambi, and that's what I've used here. I hope that's clear to all of you. Yeah, right. Then something what I want to emphasize is that please start building more and more connections on LinkedIn, right? I think that's where your opportunity also lies, because the more connections you have, the more updates you get, the more people that could reach you. And overall, you're going to find yourself in a very comfortable position, even if you were to get unemployed at any given time of your career, right? So for me, I have been building my network, right? So right now I stand at like 19,000 or etc. But then again, even as an individual, even if you're not a recruiter, please add relevant people. If there are people you look up to in the industry, please add them, engage with them, engage with their posts, write as well, right? Something which I see, right, is that most of the individuals open up a LinkedIn account and then completely forget about LinkedIn. They never go on it up until they change another job and they want to do something about it, right? Please don't do that. Be a frequent visitor and do write-ups. Please do write-ups about things you like, your passions and etc., which is acceptable, so that there are things that might come about from it, right? So I think quite recently, as you see here, I did something which is related to cycling because that's something I like. So I cycle all the way to office every now and then, right? So that it's something which I like. So for me, I combine what I like, two things I like, cycling as well as the work I do, combine that, put it in a single post and wrote about it. So please keep engaging with your audience as well, so that they also feel you're some sort of person who can add value to them. Present your ideas, right? But be very careful about how you present it, because you always have to know not all people think alike, right? Something which you think is good can be very bad in another person's eyes, right? So please engage, but be very conscious about the information or the post or the content that you push. All right. So then moving forward, right, we come across the featured section. So for example, if you're part of something incredible, let's say you conducted a session like this for your university, which you're proud of, or if you're working for a company, if you're hiring, right, and you want to hire more people, feature those posts, right? So that however much posts you do throughout your career, it'll always remain on the top. So as soon as people come, they come and see this, and it might be very good for them to see what special things you have. All right. Then once again, about. So I'll tell you about the about section. I know it's quite catchy. I'll tell you about the about section. But then again, I'll talk about this and the skills section, which is there right at the bottom towards the last bit of this presentation, so that I can give you more relevance. But for the time being, right, just know this is where, like in your CV, where you write a summary, this is where you write a summary about yourself. So I have been building tech teams, across Sri Lanka and across the world now, right? So because of that, I have included that here, right? And then I have told them what I engage in right now. So this is my past, right? This is what I do right now, right? And I also given them some sort of numbers for them to understand what my contribution has been like, right? So please add things like this which are more relevant so that people feel you are someone who's very potential to do something best. Then talk about your interests as well, right? Things you like to do and all that. And then this is something which is very, very important, which will really, really help you get hired to a company, right? It's where you jot down in simple words what your areas of expertise is, right? So once again, as I promised, we'll come back to this once we look at the, latter part of this. Then you need to tell about your experience, be it internship experience or, whatever experience it is. List it down briefly, what you have done, your goals and what you have achieved. And then any content which you can hyperlink. Now, for example, here I have hyperlinked our careers page and I have hyperlinked our, what you call, careers page as well as the company site website, so that it's easier for people to read this. So do the same with all levels of experience that you have. So I've done the same. So hold on. Yeah. So all the companies I've worked in, I've included that, right? And then lastly, right, the education part once again is important, right? Here, like in your CV, right, please include the grade you got, what results you got, where you did it, what year you were part of, right? So what I want you to understand in a simple sense is that LinkedIn is an online version of your CV in simple terms, right? Keep this updated and you won't have to worry about a single thing, right? So because this is going to be the first occurrence of a recruiter meeting you in a social platform that is, widely accepted as a business platform altogether, right? So once again, include all of it, your degree, any professional qualification you did, where you school, what achievements you had in school, and etc. This will take you forward because I see a lot of individuals have played cricket, tennis, etc. Those are nice things to have because we as companies want all-rounders and not anyone else, right? And then I think it's very common once again in Sri Lanka where you're part of ISAC, you're part of, the Leo Club, the Rotaract Club, and etc. etc. Please include all those as volunteering work too, right? So that once again, we see you're not just an academics person. You have gone way out of your way to do things for the greater good for, community, right? Skills, right? This is important, right? So this is something I'll take some time to speak to you all on, right? When it comes to skills, add everything you think is relevant, right? For example, if you're a .NET engineer, right? If you're a Java engineer or etc., adding all the small nitty-gritties that you think is relevant here, right? And why you do that is especially because these words are the words that will help you get fetched in a search that we do. So when it comes to LinkedIn, as I told you, we have this platform called LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a professional level platform, right? Where we use something called a Boolean search, right? And we look for candidates. For example, let's say if we want a software engineer in .NET, we say software engineer and .NET, and we find candidates, right? So what you have to know is everyone that if you have included those keywords, right? For example, if it's .NET MVC or etc., even Symfony as a framework, right? If you have included anything as such in your skill section or even your about section, which I referred to in the top, and if a recruiter does a search, your profile will definitely show, right? So be very careful and be very, very mindful about all the skills you add here in the skill section. This is especially important. If you do up your entire profile and don't add anything in your skill section, that's also a big hit because then you won't get recognized in the way you want your profile to get the recognition, right? So recruiters will miss out on you, companies will miss out on you, and you will miss out on a lot of opportunities that might come across your way, right? Then we talk about recommendations, right? If you have done some good work, if let's say if you are a service provider, Now, for example, a lot of you might do freelance work. Get your customers or clients to put in a good word for you, right? If you have done some good work, request them to write about, what you have done, right? And how well you have done, so that that leaves a lasting impression on all the recruiters that look at your profile, right? So don't get your friend to write something about you because it's nice. Don't do that. Get someone credible to write, right? Sometimes your superior, sometimes your previous boss, sometimes, someone you look up to, but then again, you had some sort of occurrence. Tell them to put in a good word, and this will take you very far. The more is better, but then again, ensure that everything is relevant, right? It's not a friend writing about you or a lecturer writing about you. Get something done very well so that, it shows people that you have done some very good work, right, in your line of work altogether, right? Then lastly, right, honors and awards. Sometimes you might be part of the dean's list. Sometimes you might be the best achiever or the best performer in your company, right? Let's say you got something like the Spark Award or etc. Include all of that, because these where you get recognized for all the efforts you have done, right? And then lastly, towards the last bit of this, right, ensure that you include all the languages that you're fluent with, right? So that any recruiter who's talking to you, right, or is going to approach you through LinkedIn exactly knows what language they should be speaking to you on, so that, they can understand and create some sort of, let's say, rapport between you and him or her, so that, you can take the conversation forward, right? So that's something which is very important. So this is LinkedIn as a whole, and this is something which I wanted to emphasize and give you a brief understanding about why it is very important to do so, right? So every section that we spoke of, I told you why it's relevant, what you need to include, and etc., so that, you're on the high level to success, right? And then the other thing is, I think so commonly in Sri Lanka, right, when it comes to the tagline, right, most individuals put their designation, senior software engineer, manager, or whatever it is, right? Put something catchy. A tagline should definitely not be your current designation, right? Put something catchy, because this is where you get people to come into your profile, right? Make it nice, make it formal, but ensure that it's very accepting altogether, right? So two last things before we wrap up with LinkedIn, right? Contact info once again, right? Include your email address, right? Phone number, if you're comfortable doing that, please do that. Personally, I don't, but you could definitely do that. And I would advise you to use another alternate phone number if you're putting it on LinkedIn and not your primary SIM, because then you get many calls from people who you might even not know if they are a connection of yours. Yeah, please do that. And then lastly, the importance of maintaining a good format, right? Is that, let's say, for example, you're approached out of nowhere and they tell you, like, look here, we have something as such, we have an opportunity, please send your CV across, but you don't have a CV. If that is the case, it's a matter of you downloading your CV. So you can just click on more, save to PDF, right? Or you can even go to build a resume. But for the time being, if it's immediate, click on save to PDF. And all this information that is there here will get exported into a PDF document. So if you're trying to patch things up where you're going to send something else up until you get your resume ready, this is the best way to do it, right? So that's everything about LinkedIn as well. So there are some closing slides as well, which I think is very important, right? So that, we can set things on a good note. So we'll just revisit that, right? Just give a second, please. Right. Shelly, is my screen visible once again?
Yes, Aishan, it is.
All good? Okay. Wonderful. All right. So we come to the last slide before we take all your wonderful questions, which I'm very excited for, right? What I want you to know is that even at 99x, when it comes to all the candidates who have applied, right, we usually hire only 4.9% of that entire percentage of people who we think are good, right? So we call that the conversion rate in technical terms, right? But then again, just know that chances can always be slim. But given that you create a first impression, a good impression with your CV, you'll go a very long way, right? Because your CV speaks for yourself, right? So when you first apply for a job, you don't meet them in person, you don't talk to them, you don't tell them why you're interested. You just send a piece of paper across and tell them, look here, this is my first foot. If you like this, please contact me. So this is the deciding factor. Ensure that you do a very, very good CV so that you're set for success. So just for matrix, right? Just understand that general conversion here at 99x is around 5%, but then again, the industry is 7 to 10%. So keep applying. Just don't apply for one job and call it a day. If you're a fresh graduate who's trying to secure something, please apply for more jobs, right? So that you can get a chance of going forward, right? And then what I want to also give you here, right, on the right side of things, is that you see the average time to fill. So at 99x, as you see as a track record, back then we used to close the opening back in 2020 in 56 days, and now 2021, 28 days, and now we are down to 17 days. So we do things very fast and the market is fast, right? So this is what I want you to understand, right? The best candidates get hired very fast. And as you see here as a last line, the best candidates are off the market within 10 days usually, right? It happens so fast. So you have to be very good in what you do, right? So coming back to why I included this time to fill for you all to understand is that if you apply to 99x or any other company, and if you don't hear from them on an average of 8 days, right? It's okay. Go ahead, apply for other companies, right? Because this is the industry norm. This is where it lies. This is the harsh truth that everyone should know about, right? Sometimes don't apply for a one single job and wait for it until forever, until you get a call. Don't do that because you're losing your chances of getting into a job because it's highly competitive out there, right? Apply for more and you'll be good. So on average of 8 days, if you don't hear from them, the tendency is that, you won't get a call from that company. Don't feel motivated. Give it your best shot. Know that you'll succeed and go ahead, right? So the thing is, last line once again, skill is the currency that will transact you with the employer. Be a very skillful individual, be a very motivated individual, and also be a person with a lot of perseverance and also with a planned way of life, right? You do that, you'll be good in what you do. So once again, I want to finish with this quote, not quote, but then again, this last liner, which you see here, the best candidates off the market within 10 days. So my objective of doing all this today, the slides which you looked at, right, the LinkedIn's we looked at, right, is that I want you to be a candidate who gets hired within 10 days, right? You follow all this, right? You go to everything that we spoke of, think about it, right? And then resonate on that and then see why you need to do it and do it. And I will promise you, you'll have better chances of getting hired. I can assure you that all of you will get hired one shot, right? Sometimes the luck as well, it plays out that way. But then again, the majority of you definitely go forward and go a long way altogether, right? So that's that from my end. So very nice talking to you, right? I am now open for questions. I think Shalini will be taking over from there. Over to you, Shalini.
Yes, thank you so much, Aishan, for that wonderful session. And now you can drop your questions in the chat box. We already have received your questions. So I'll start with the first one, Aishan, you can answer. So yes. So the first question is, does the ideal summary contain enough information? So should it contain ideal summary contain enough information? Yeah. So that is the question.
Okay, right. Very good question once again. Any question is a good question, right? So let me answer that, right? A summary is a summary and not a paragraph or a book, right? A summary is a quick glance that we want to have to understand who you are as a candidate, right? So the thing is, you need to compress all the ideas that you want to present, right? And put things forward. So ensure, right, that you write about yourself in 3 lines. It should not be too lengthy where it becomes a paragraph, because that defeats the entire purpose, right? Yes, a summary is enough information for us to understand you as the first occurrence, because that's the first thing that we see when we open your CV altogether. Yes, Shirley.
Yes, great. So the second question we have is, second. Yes. What do we need to include under work experience if we don't have, like, if they haven't done any internship?
Okay, very good, very good. So here you can really emphasize about your, college related work, right? What you have done in your university, right? All the projects you have done, and please explain the project. Just don't put in a one line saying that, I created a system to help with the library book management. Don't do that. Explain it. Put that as a title, write a description, show us your role, etc. Try to build an experience from the college level work that you did. So I think that's the best way forward for you to, secure a job altogether.
Yes. So the next question is, what is the main reason for adding referees in
That's
this
very good.
CV?
Yes. So the thing is, I think it's pretty normal where most of us, right? I think it's not just in Sri Lanka, but just all over the world. We always like to take second thought about things, right? Even in life. So let's say, even if you were to get a job opportunity, you'll always go to your parents, or, if you're married, to your spouse as well, and then tell them about it, get the idea as well. I think it's very rare that someone would take up job entirely without telling their family or, significant other. That's because we always like to get a second word, right? That's not to ensure that we take a whole decision based on what they think, but that's more or less like some confidence. So that's the same thing that we do here, right? Obviously, if you were to talk to your family, if you were to talk to, anyone who's directly related to you, they're obviously going to say good, even if you're wrong, right? So the chances are, when it's a non-related referee, they might speak out the best sense about you and tell us the true picture. But then again, that too is just an opinion, and that's not something which we take a decision on entirely. So that's something which I want to emphasize on.
Yes, I think you already answered this question, Aishan. So it says in LinkedIn, do we need to add recommendations from others?
I think
So
yes.
yes,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. If there's any possibility for you to get a recommendation from someone, please go ahead, do it. If you want to be a nice chef altogether, write something nice for someone where you really think they did some good job, please go ahead and do it. It's nice to be nice to one another in this space and time. Yes.
Yes. So we have another question, that is, how about having your own portfolio website instead of constantly being on LinkedIn?
Okay. I think that's not something which is on the rise right now. So I've come across candidates where sometimes when we ask about a resume, we ask for a resume or CV, right? They just send us an open link where when we click on it, it's a website, right? So the thing is, what you need to understand is that hiring within an organization space is not easy, because it's just not one single decision where I look at your CV and I be like, okay, I need to hire this person. Usually what happens is that I look at your CV. If we think you're good from a talent acquisition space, we put you to a technical round, and then, we proceed with the interviews that's there in the process altogether, or the hiring workflow, as we call it, as a technical term. So the thing is, right, if it was a website, right, it would be so weird for us to keep exchanging a link from one to another, where, they have to go through the entirety of it and then, see what is there. That's one. Number two, when it comes to all these CVs or candidate profiles we maintain, right, what we need to understand is that we don't keep them in Excel sheets. We use something called application tracking system, which we really spend heavily on when it comes to a corporate space, right? So the thing is, right, we are not right now in an age and time where we can include links as a profile right now, right? So for a CV to be for an profile to be an entry on the ATS, usually you require CV. So a CV is definitely required. But then again, if you're a designer, you can definitely have a portfolio linked, or, keyed in on your profile or your CV, so that once we look at your CV, there's always another reference point for us to click on and then revisit and see what your designs are. This is especially if you're a graphic designer or UX designer altogether.
Yes. So the next question is, can I know a good CV making platform?
A good CV making platform.
Yes.
I would recommend you not to do that, right? Just go on Google. If you really, really want to explore options, go on Google, type it out and see. But I unfortunately won't name anything here because, this is not sponsored, or, this is not a space where I can name out products and platforms. But then again, I would highly advise you not to do that. Now you have the guidelines I think you saw in this few slides we discussed. Build your own, make it nice so that that CV is you and not anyone else. Because the tendency is that if you were to use a platform, another 1,000 people are going to have the same CV, right? So please don't do that.
Yeah, so the next question we have is, can I know about the ATS technically?
ATS technically, is it?
Yes.
Right. So an ATS is called an application tracking system. So ATS is the abbreviation. So this is more or less like an entire platform, right, that we usually pay and take from, companies who build ATSs, right? And we store all the CVs here, right? So it's like a CV central altogether. But then again, you have the option of creating projects. So projects meaning, different types of recruitments we are doing. So for example, let's say if we are hiring for a software engineer, we can open a project called software engineer, and then we can receive all your CVs to that particular project. And we can then take you forward along the hiring flow. So the hiring flow is where you find different funnels, as we call it. So it says technical interview 1, technical interview 2, offer negotiation, offer hired, and etc. So an ATS is where we don't have to maintain an Excel sheet per se, but then again, we receive your CV, right? And then, we take you through that journey. And if you're disqualified along the way, in each funnel, there's a disqualification button where we click on disqualify, and then you're moved out of the project, right? So that's what an ATS is like on a very shallow level, but you can read about it more. It's called application tracking system.
Yes, so Aishan, someone is asking whether we will be able to share the slides or not.
I think we should be able to, if it's something which we could do probably from a company policy perspective, I think that should be able to reach you.
Yes. So the next question is, will it be an advantage in some way if we use company colors where necessary when making a CV targeting one company?
That's good. That's good. But that's extremely time consuming, which I would not advise you to do. Because, for example, if you're applying to 100 companies, I hope it's not the case, but if you're applying for 100 companies, you're going to sit down editing your CV 100 times to suit that. So I don't think it's something which is practical and feasible to do. But if you think you apply once and you get the job and you're so sure of it, please go ahead and do it. It's okay. It's a nice thing to have.
Yes. So someone is asking, Viraj is asking, what are the technologies that we are using at 99X for software development?
All right, very good question. So majority of, so I'll just tell you all what we use at a very shallow level. So when it comes to the development, all engineers here at 99X are full stack engineers, right? And then when it comes to QA space, we have QAs, UX engineers, and etc. But then again, we don't have, project managers or BAs according to the model that we operate in. When it comes to development and, the tech stacks that we use at the moment, right? So majority, as in the majority of the projects, right, run on .NET here at 99X, right? Then you find Java, PHP, Node. So those are the four main, technologies that we use at 99X.
Yes. So there is someone asking whether we have HRO talent acquisition internships at 99X.
That's a good question. We just hired someone 3 days back. So for the time being, I'm so sorry, it's a no. But we are definitely expanding crazily because it's just not in Sri Lanka. We are just venturing out into the open, and then we are going cross seas. So we'll need more and more people. So if there's any opening, you'll see that on LinkedIn, right? So please, follow LinkedIn, right? So you'll get updates there, and then you'll also see it on other platforms or portals like Top Jobs.
Yes. So the next question is, we have quite a lot of questions today. So
Okay.
Someone is asking whether we can share some tips about cover letter writing.
That's good. I think that's a very valid point. So at the moment, we don't encourage cover letters because that's not something right now at present, we as a company, I think I can talk about 99X as a company for the most part, we don't look into cover letters. So I don't think it's mandatory at all to write a cover letter for any of the jobs you you apply for, sorry. So if you're applying, just your CV should do. So I don't think cover letters is something which is relevant right now. Back in the day, yes, but right now, no. We can take a few more questions,
Yes.
I believe. Shall we? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
I think it's a lot of questions. I see a whole host of questions coming through. But yeah.
Yeah. So there's another question. Are LinkedIn skill badges which
Hmm.
owns are well acceptable or valid? Or I mean, is it an
Yeah,
added value?
it is. It definitely is. Right. If you have completed some sort of skill assessment on LinkedIn and you have scored very well, keep that intact on your profile. I think that gives us some sort of confidence as well as to why we need to hire you.
Yes. So we have a lot of questions. Let me choose a few. Uh, yeah. So someone is asking, what skills do companies look for when hiring an intern for UI UX engineering?
Right. That's good. So once again, here we look at your academics and we see whether you're an all-rounder, because there's nothing much for us to gauge you on. So we look at your skills in your, how well you have done in your academics, and then whether you're all-round, and we your personality, irrespective of what line of work you choose to do rather, whether it's UX or engineering or QA, etc. That's irrelevant. That's based on your preference and interest. But I think given that you cover the basic three pillars that I told you, we are good to go here.
Yeah. So there's another question. Do LinkedIn, Udemy, or other certifications in educational platforms consider as professional qualifications?
Well, when it comes to online courses, right, there is acceptance, but not as much as you doing it from a professional body that has, physical presence in your country or in another country, right? Because still, I think we are transitioning into that digital, fully digital era. But then again, yes, it's acceptable up to a certain level, but it's not as strong as, a qualification you get from a body altogether.
Yes, I think we can take like three more questions, Aisha.
Yeah, we could do that,
Yeah.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah, we could spare a few more minutes. Yeah.
Yes. So there's another question. What is the time period we need to wait to apply again to the same company if we fail the interview for a specific role?
Okay, good. I would say if you're starting out as a fresher, or, your internship or anything as such, a month or two would do, right? Don't apply immediately if you have, got disqualified. Don't do that. But, safe to say between 1 to 2 months, during that period of time, you can go ahead and apply and should not be a problem. But then again, if you're a skilled individual who has many years of experience, just give it at least 6 months before you apply to another.
Yes. So I'll take two more questions. So can we apply for an associate quality assurance engineer position with having experience in business analytics? Do we need to do an internship to have experience to switch on to a different field?
Okay, that's good. That's a good question. So the thing is, at 99X, we don't, take many associate level individuals, because that's not something which are structure supported up until very recent, right? So the thing is, yes, there's always possibility for you to go ahead and given that you have the knowledge on the basics about QA, if you want to do that, right? So what you could do is that if you have followed a different line of work and you want to, upskill yourself and do something else as your career, read about it, do more qualifications, and get your academics right in that line of work so that you have many chances of getting selected. But that should not be a showstopper. And I can guarantee you, you will definitely find a job at an associate level.
Yes. So I'm going to choose the final question here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Let's go with yeah. So someone is asking if they are emailing the CV, should it the email body should contain the
ensure ensure that you properly understand the cons and the pros of doing that. And then you also see the other factors. For example, do you have a lot of dependents? If you're the breadwinner of the family, are there any dependents? And also, you as a person, are you the type of person to take the hard road, to take the rough road, learn things the hard way? Or are you the type of person to lead a comfortable life? If that is the case, don't do that switch. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of things that you need to go through to successfully change your industry. It's a risk, right? I would highly advise you, if you're in a very senior level in your career, don't do that, right? Because that's something which might take a toll on you. But then again, if you have all the finances sorted, please go ahead once again, right? But if you're just starting out, please feel free to do that. Because personally, I would like to share that insight with you as well. I am a finance graduate, right? I take pride in saying that. I am a finance graduate. I did accounting and finance, and here I am doing talent acquisition and 99x, right? Anything is possible, right? It's a matter of dedication and wanting to put in the hard work.